Hi, my name is Jingting Liu. I am currently an assistant professor of international business at the Business School of University of Colorado, Denver campus. My academic research focuses on international entrepreneurship, and I hold it dear and near to my heart to study and promote social entrepreneurship addressing global issues, problems that we all have to confront on a global scale. Today, I'd like to share with you my personal journey and thoughts about the 12th goal of the United Nations Strategic Development Goals: responsible consumption and production. My story revolves around these two items: a plastic bag and a big green leaf. I'll start with the leaf. I was born in a small town in southwest China called Changshou. The town's name literally means longevity because it's known as the home of people living long lives. You can imagine by the name, it is a beautiful town snuggled by the Yangtze River and surrounded by green hills. I spent the majority of my childhood living with my grandmother in a small village in Changshou. The kids in the village would all play together carefreely, catching fish in the creeks, picking up mushrooms after a rainstorm, chasing butterflies, and playing with all kinds of bugs. I loved to lie down on a bamboo chair with my grandmother, looking up at the sky full of bright stars, and listen to frogs and crickets singing. My grandparents had some small pieces of farmland to work on, but some of them are far away from our house. So sometimes my grandmother would wake up early in the morning and walk a mile or two to work on the faraway land. When she returns, often in the middle of a hot summer day, she would carry back a small basket like this, made of a big green leaf, holding a bunch of sweet wild berries. She would not eat any herself, but save them all for me. That little basket holds my grandmother's love for me. That little leaf basket also embodies a green lifestyle, the old-fashioned way of living when we were so close to nature. Living in that small village was one of the best parts of my life. But quickly I grew up and had to move with my parents into the city for better education. And that was when I started using these items more often. My breakfast snacks were wrapped with plastic bags like this, and people would toss them around when they're done with them, sometimes into a trash can when there was a trash can around, but sometimes just on the street, on the ground, everywhere. When I was in elementary and middle school, I would still visit my grandma often during summer and winter breaks. I forgot when it all started to happen, but I began seeing plastic bags, wrappers, bottles, and straws all tossed around and buried by country roads and in village outskirts. Living in the city, you have trucks coming to your doorway to collect your trash and take it somewhere else. But that is not the case in the countryside. There's no truck coming to pick up your trash and bury it somewhere else. The villagers had been tossing and burying their trash in the exact same way for the last decade, century, and millennia. But the difference now is trash used to decompose quickly with the help of microbes. But now plastic waste does not decompose easily in the natural environment. So the piles of plastic trash stood strong there, among the farm fields that I used to play in, running around with my bare feet. The piles of plastic trash might look like an eyesore to some people, but it was a dagger stabbed into my heart. My heart ached. At that time, I didn't know much about plastic pollution or the harmful effects it has on us, on our farm soil, and the food it grows, and the food that we depend on for our life. All I felt at that time was a pain in my chest just by realizing that my village is no longer the same village as in my memory. Later, I grew up more. I went to the capital city, Beijing, for college and grad school. After that, I came to the United States for my doctoral education and academic career. I have witnessed and benefited from the fast economic growth of China, my home country, from an underdeveloped agricultural country to become the world's factory and more integrated into the global economy. In the meanwhile, my eyes were also open to a series of issues as our global marketplace continues to evolve. One of the wake-up calls for me was a documentary film released in 2016 titled Plastic China, documenting the plastic recycling industry, featuring the story of an 11-year-old unschooled girl and her family living and working among piles and piles of plastic waste. One of the most memorable but heartbreaking scenes from the documentary was when a small group of little kids aged between 3 and 5 playing with plastic medical waste, putting medical syringes in their mouths to drink water. At that time, I was already educated enough to know how bad it is and what it could have done to the kids. My heart broke again, and I cried so hard. The plastic wastes in the documentary were collected from all over the country and even all over the world to be processed by the group of people with raw and simple methods in extremely unsafe conditions, causing tremendous damages to their health and the environment. After realizing the problems in the plastic recycling industry, the Chinese government tightened up regulations and issued the ban on imported plastic waste in 2018. But the problem is still not solved. The problem of plastic waste is a global one. China used to be the #1 country importing plastic waste for recycling. After their ban on imported plastic waste, many Western countries, including the United States, are left alone to deal with their plastic problem. But many countries, unfortunately, don't have the capacity to do the job and do it well. Consequently, many cities in North America totally abandoned their plastic recycling programs, but simply bury all trash in landfills. I showed an HBO video covering this issue to my American students. The video was titled, "China's Waste Ban is Causing a Trash Crisis in the US." One of my students raised an excellent point after watching the video. He said to the whole class, "It is not China that is causing the trash crisis in the US. We are the ones responsible for it. We have to clean up our home ourselves." Indeed, developed countries need to take more responsibilities with waste processing, and developing countries should not end up as trash yards of imported plastic waste in exchange for small economic gains, but at the price of environmental pollution and damages to human health. Still, the problem has not been solved. Given my genuine passion on this topic, and with guidance from exceptional scholars such as Professor Antonella Zuccella from University of Pavia in Italy and Professor Manuel Serapio from University of Colorado, I recently started my research project into the entrepreneurship in the circular economy. I was looking for distinctive patterns, innovative business models, new technologies and methods to solve our problem. The circular economy is a broad concept. It is often defined in different ways by scholars from different fields. But the overarching theme of the circular economy is the cyclical and circular movement of materials in our production and consumption process in our economic system. Recycling and reusing plastic is exactly one important piece of the circular economy. Our collaborative research projects on entrepreneur ventures in the circular economy from China, the US, and Europe has delivered exciting news. Yes, we found that more and more entrepreneurs and their teams have devoted into the circular economy, making our production and consumption more responsible and sustainable, demanding less but providing more. The production materials that are being circulated go beyond various types of plastics, but also include chemicals, metals, organic waste, and other materials in the industrial production and individual consumption processes. We also find that companies leverage technologies such as digital technology to create new business models and to increase efficacy and efficiency. We also found that the millennial generation cares tremendously about the health of our mother planet, both as responsible consumers as well as creative entrepreneurs and responsible practitioners of business. Having reported the good news, I also have to confess that the more I research into the area, the more I realize the magnitude of the problem and how much work there remains for us to do. According to the United Nations Environmental Program, only 9% of all plastic waste ever produced has been recycled. 12% has been incinerated, and the vast majority, 79%, has ended up in landfills, dumps, and our natural environment, including our oceans, rivers, and various water bodies on which our life depends. This is only plastics, but let's also think about batteries, electronics, and other technological chemical products that are taxing on our environment to produce and consume, especially when it's not done in the right way. It is high time for us to realize that we cannot pursue economic growth at the price of environmental degradation. We as individual consumers need to live in a responsible and sustainable lifestyle. Companies as producers also need to innovate and produce at minimum environmental cost. Our societies, as we work together, shall move forward in a sustainable fashion. But even more importantly, we also need to look back and correct the mistakes that we have made previously. The plastic bag will not go away unless we pick it up and dispose of it properly. The small leaf basket my grandma made was such a beautiful, creative, and loving creation. I'm sure thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs all around the world will come up with solutions to our problems. And individual consumers, as we all are are happy to contribute to. You and me are in this together. And together, we can do it. Thank you.